Back with that 68 Princeton Reverb, the owner provided the amp with a request to change the tubes and change out the power cable. And in the box were all new JJ tubes, so 3 ECC83s, 1 ECC81, the same thing as a 12AT7, 2 6V6Ss, and a GZ34. Also in the box were an old Mullard GZ34, apparently original RCA 6V6s, a mixture of a Siemens and Telefunken, an RCA, etc., and I think another Mullard preamp tube. So I thought, before I just put in the current production inexpensive JJs, let's test these tubes. So when I first powered everything up, I brought it up slowly on a Variac, the amp was very noisy. And that was due to two things. Number one, all that metal oxide, the zinc oxide that was on all the surface area of all the metal, was also inside the pots. So I cleaned all the pots and the noise level dropped dramatically and all the static and stuff was gone. That's why the owner thought it needed new tubes. He looked on a forum and someone said, hey, if your amp's making noise, it needs new tubes. So he got all new tubes. So far in my testing, I'll go ahead and spoil one of the pleasant surprises. I can return all these JJs to the vendor and get the owner his credit card charged back. He can get a refund. He does not need new tubes from what I can tell. All these old tubes seem to be fine. Second of all, the three components in the bias supply, the 22K, which measured 27K, and the 100K, which measured 135K, and this replaced cap in the bias supply. I've never seen one done like this before where someone didn't take the time to trim the leads. They just bent over the excess and soldered those loops down, touching the eyelets. I've not spent the time to find out which was bad, though sometimes a resistor which measures okay out of circuit does not actually have that resistance when there's current through it. So I changed out for 100K, and instead of a new 22K, I first tried a 27K, and I tried a 33K. And with the 33K, the amp is now biased at about 48% idle dissipation with a wall voltage of 118. So I know that's going to be within a good range. With the 27, it was right at 70%, which is too hot. The owner didn't want to spend for putting in an adjustable bias. Let me show you the bias circuit as it is now, though. Looks quite nice and neat. That's a Vishay 47 microfarad 100 volt right there. Will never be problematic. The one that was in there was a 50 volt. The original would have been 25 volt, I believe. Let me look at the schematic on that. I think that's 25 volt in the original. No, 50 in the original. Okay, some of the other fenders used a 25 volt there. But 50 volts is not quite enough in a bias supply because if one of the components fails, you can have more than 50 volts present, even if just momentarily. So the 100 volts a better value there. And everything else in the amp is original. Not only is everything in the amp original, else in the amp, it all seems to be quite good, with one exception, definitely. This 6.8K here, the mids resistor, has drifted up to 10K, and you can really hear it. The amp sounds a little bit boxy. This 3.3K is actually measuring 3.3 meg in the reverb path. That's the dry feed through, is actually about 4 meg. So the reverb to dry ratio is not quite as intended, but it's okay. And the amp does not have the deepest of trims. And I could change that, but given how immaculate everything is, I think we need to let this amp have a little bit of unique character. I may change that 10K back to the proper 6.8K on the mids, just because that's a real noticeable change, especially when it's back with its Oxford, the 10-inch Oxford. That extra mids can be real boxy, but here's what it's sounding like. A little bit of hum because I'm sitting with the pickup so close to the transformers. That's not the original tank, that's my test tank. I will test the Oxford and the original tank in a moment, but so far it's looking like rather than all new tubes. He needs the grounded power cable and the changes I made to the bias supply, and cleaning the pots and getting all that white zinc oxide off of everything. I'm gonna clean the knobs carefully without losing the ink and put them back in place. And I'm pretty sure the owner's going to have a fantastic sounding Princeton for a good long while. Now, he said he doesn't play a lot. He inherited this amp from his dad, and he doesn't know whether he's going to keep it and play it for the rest of his life or maybe sell it. So while I do think this amp would benefit probably within the next couple of years from having all the electrolytics replaced, unless something starts to change as I test this over the next couple of hours, that can be something for the next buyer. It's a beautiful example of an almost unmolested 68 Princeton Reverb. The molestation here was necessary and quite good. I don't think anyone would turn their nose up at that. And I'll return these two original resistors in a little baggie in case some collector ever wants to have them and say, oh my gosh, those bad parts are from 1968. Now I have all the original bad parts. I don't understand that mentality myself, but this bad replacement is getting tossed. I'll do it right now. That's satisfying. So far, the speaker seems just fine. So that's good. In fact, it sounds very healthy. I can definitely hear that 10K, but that's easily fixed. But if I turn up the reverb, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Hear all that? Something's intermittent, so it's a connection in the tank most likely. Or it could be the cable, but let's try the tank first. All right, that's dirty enough that later I'll get in there with a warmer, a washcloth dipped in some warm water. Right now, let's see what's going on with this reverb tank. Let me undo these 4 screws so we can get inside it. When I opened up the tank, I started doing measurements, and I got infinite resistance across this transducer. So then I measured from black to black, green to green. Green to green was 0 ohms. Black to black was infinite. So I reflowed the black. I reflowed the black here. And now I have about 180 ohms there, 170 something. That should be working. Let's put this in place and see. And that was on the return, by the way. So hopefully this will be working now. Whenever possible, I like to keep the original tank. That's a promising sound. Well, not only does he not need new tubes, he does not need a new reverb tank. So I think I'm going to be able to make this owner very, very happy. The speaker sounds great. When I replace the power cable here with a 3-conductor, I'm going to change that 10K, the drifted 6.8K, which now measures 10K on the mid spot, back down to the proper 6.8, because that does make a difference. But other than that, the amp is sounding great. I get a great sense of satisfaction with amps like this that come in. Really wonderful old amps where, you know, scary noises are happening or it sounds like it's going to be a big expensive thing. And it's just a few simple things preventing it from being its best. And once you find those simple few things and replace them properly and replace them well, then the amp can continue to make music for another 20 years. That's a good place to be, for the owner and for myself.